First, we're gonna undo this fuse thing. Let's see, we want fuel distribution. Fuel pump relay. 21. And it says to run the car until it dies. So we're gonna take off this engine cover. I've already pulled it up, just pulls up off these studs. See the little studs anchored into there. Now we're gonna take off this air box. That bolt, this hose. I think there's one more. Down there somewhere maybe. All right, let's pull this thing off. All right, so it's just these two bolts. Pull the housing up that way and forward, and it undoes. Now we got to get this piece out of the way, which is this piece right here. Looks like a 10 mil, 8 mil. Air box out. We'll have to undo this belt with the tensioner down there. Undo this motor mount, support the motor, and yeah, catch you back. Now we're gonna take the intake manifold off. We're gonna disconnect throttle cables, pull these guys back, rotate the little things out, tangs, and then we'll pull right out of there. Next we'll pull out these two bolts, retaining the throttle cables, and push it out of the way. Then we'll remove this bolt holding the oil fill on the upper intake. Next we'll pull this dipstick retainer bolt out the upper intake. Next we'll remove this alternator support bracket. Next we're gonna remove the electrical connectors for the manifold tuning valve, short runner valve, EGR, throttle position sensor, and idle air valve, as well as the manifold absolute pressure sensor. Now, I think because of what I've read online, I'm probably just going to pull this EGR tube out. I bought some new gaskets for it, and they say if you don't pull it out, you risk bending it and it won't seal properly afterwards. So I'm gonna see if I can get the whole thing out, but wish me luck. All the wiring. Those are the last two EGR bolts. We'll get those out. We also have to remove that bracket on the back of the head. So that bolt to the back of the head is a real pain in the neck. I just loosened it a little bit and it seems like the EGR is loose enough. I'll be able to pull it out without damaging anything, but we'll see. Now I just gotta disconnect a bunch of vacuum lines. Specifically PCV vacuum, evap purge, and power brake booster. Imagine that's this one. And let's see what else we got here. This one. And this one. This guy was right here. Detached him. Now we'll remove this manifold support brace. Now my manual says that there'll be a bracket back here too, but I guess they omitted on this car. So I unbolted that front bracket. Now I'm gonna unbolt the, it seems to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 upper intake manifold bolts. Let's see what happens. My manual didn't mention these, but I'm gonna pull out the 2 bolts retaining the oil filler neck. I've got all the bolts loose and the manifold is loose, but it seems like that's holding it up, so we'll try that. That helped. It looks like this little wiring loom holder has to come too. And this bracket right here has to come off. Got the upper intake off. Next, I'm gonna drain the coolant. I think the best way is probably gonna be disconnecting that lower radiator hose. It's gonna be a pain to get to unless I remove this coolant power steering reservoir, so I'm gonna try moving that and then see if I can get to it. Turns out there's one more bolt on that bracket right there. So the radiator hoses are real hard to get to for that lower one. I'm thinking I'm just gonna drain the car from this upper radiator hose, and whatever's in there on the lower one will come out when I do the water pump. So I'm gonna try and take this screw right out here. It's pretty rusty, so I'm just gonna take it slow and we'll see what happens. Gonna undo the cruise wiring. I'm gonna disconnect the valve covers. Just gonna pull off the coil wires and unbolt them. I'm gonna do these little wiring retainers. And then I think this is a knock sensor or ground wire or something. We gotta pull that off too. I'm bolting the alternator. The order goes red wire, crush, lock washer, nut. Just gonna undo this grounding sensor. Next, I unbolted the coils, already to this side, and I'm gonna label them so that I don't get them mixed up. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove this valve cover with these bolts. I was hoping not to have to remove this bracket, but it looks like I'm gonna have to because there are bolts hidden behind it. All right, now I'm gonna pull up these wiring retainers, kind of like the other side. Get whatever wiring out of the way I need to, and then pull the valve cover off. All right, got both those unclipped. I'm gonna pull off the PCV hose just to get it out of the way. I'm gonna unplug the O2 so I can get this harness over this. Next, I'm gonna pull the wiring harness off of this little bracket. I might just unbolt it. Might be a safer bet. I'm gonna unplug these 2 connectors so I can get this harness out of the way. So because this valve cover bolt is so conveniently blocked by the EGR tube, we're gonna have to undo the EGR tube. Now the EGR is out of the way, I think I'm gonna unplug this connector and the injector connectors to see if I can get this harness to lay over there, because in order to pull these cam plates off, I gotta get the EGR out of the way on that side. And I think it's just gonna be a lot easier if I have this whole loom removed. So here we go. One more plug here. Harnesses are all over draped. So the EGR was held on by 2 bolts. Unbolted them there just to make room for this cam plate to come out and the cam to move out when we replace the, we pull the pulleys off. All right, so I got the front valve cover off. I loosened up all these bolts going from inside to out. These seem a little loose side to side, but I think I'm just gonna send it for now. And I pulled all these off. I'm gonna take this out. About to get this one off. It looks like there's a ground strap back there, so I'm gonna pull that off. So I plan on replacing all my coolant hoses just to hopefully increase some reliability. So I think we're gonna pull off this plastic piece first. Yeah. Next, we're gonna move the support bar that the radiator mounts to. So I got these bolts. These short ones go on the hood latch. This wiring plugs right into there. And now I think we just gotta remove these push pins. Got this guy out. Now, take fan bolts out one, and I think the other one's over here under the radiator hose. I'm gonna pull that plug and this plug and pop all these little retainers off. So much easier to get to now. Those clamps are still really tight, but I should be able to get them off. All right, replace the heater hoses. Remove the lower radiator, still waiting for it to come in. Gonna pull off the tensioner and the pulley here. All right, I got the motor sport with the jack underneath. Now I'm pulling off this engine mount. It's 3 of these bolts on the top and 2 of these mounted to the body. Now I'm gonna pull off this bottom idler. I'm gonna pull out this inner wheelhouse so I can hopefully get a little easier access to the crank pulley. Looks like it just screws here. And a few plugs. I pull out power steering bolts. One here on the left. One here. The last one I think is down here. The bottom, but I'm not positive. All right, now we're gonna zip out the crank pulley, 18 millimeter, use my impact. It's not shown here, but I did have to use a puller to remove this crank pulley. Okay, crank pulley's off. Now I just have to pull off the lower timing cover bolts. So all those bolts are the same except for this one. Top right corner, which is a Allen key, I think. And that one, which is a stud. All the others are the small hex. All right, I'm gonna remove the upper timing cover bolts now. All right, now we got that timing cover off, and we'll see what's next. I think we gotta rotate it to top dead center. Make sure you loosen the spark plugs first, because with the cams out, the valves aren't gonna be opening, so it wouldn't let me spin the motor. So I'll loosen those and see if that fixed it. All right, let's put some little marks on the timing belt. After lining up top dead center, I'm gonna put one down here too. Now we're gonna go ahead and loosen up that tensioner. So to impact that pulley off, but now cams spin freely because the rockers are out. Started taking out the water pump bolts. What I'm gonna do is, to keep them straight, I got the pump there, and I got my new Mopar pump. I'm just gonna put each bolt in the hole and then take the old pump off to prepare for removing the timing cover. All right, so I took this cam gear off on the front, and the bolt comes out of that one, but the back one, the bolt won't come out because it is too long. So that's why we gotta remove that cam retainer plate on the back to push the cam back a few inches so we can get that bolt out. The tools I used, this inch and 7/16 wrench I got on Amazon. Yeah, inch and 7/16. See if it focus. This holds the outside, like on the cam gear itself, and you use a wrench on the bolt, and that'll undo it. So now I'm going to move the timing cover bolts, so we'll get it all loose. I think now I'm actually going to pull the cam out the back, get that pulley out, and then I'll make getting this front cover off a little easier. The way that'll work is pulling those 3 bolts, putting down a towel so it doesn't nick the cam, and pulling the cam out the back. Alright, so I got that off. And now I threaded the bolt back in a little bit to hopefully assist in me pushing the cam out. So let's see what happens. Alright, so I pulled the cam out a little bit, and that allowed me to take that other pulley off. So I'm going to push the cam back in after giving it a little wipe down and put some oil on it, and then I'll be able to take the front cover off. Alright, so I think I've got all the fasteners out. Now, I'm hopeful I don't take out the studs, they're really in there. I'm going to take out this pulley because it's attached to the timing cover, and I don't know, hopefully I can push this power steering up a little bit. Wish me luck. Just to be safe, I'm going to push this cam out a little bit too. Just these 3 bolts, this bracket is attached to the top one. Gonna move this pulley right here. All right, that was fun. And you can see these are completely flat. So looks like they may have been leaking a little bit there too. So I'm glad we're doing this. I'm pretty sure that's where my leak was from. All right, so I get this all cleaned up. Hopefully they're clean enough. With the old dust and stuff in there. And I used my plastic scrapers on this. Pretty smooth. Not perfect, but we'll see. Hopefully it's good enough. All right, so now we're gonna do the cam seals. I pulled this cam back a decent amount. Looks like it just punched that seal out. Here's the front. And then drive the new one in with the tools, so we'll see. All right, so I slid that cam back, used a punch to punch out the seal from the inside. I'm just gonna clean this up and tap it in from the front. All right, new seals tapped in using this tool. I'm gonna slip this on top of the cam. Use that to help me push it through the seal. All right, got both camshaft seals replaced. And I got the water pump, those O-rings for the timing cover replaced. So we can see those to flash. It's kind of tough to see, but there's that one, and that one. They got dielectric grease on them since that's what they recommended using. All right, so these 3 bolts on each cam. Gotta put a little thread sealant on them. Turn them in. All right, we got the rear timing cover on. Studs and bolts are all torqued. 40 foot-pounds for the M10s and 20 foot-pounds for the M8s. The manual references an older style of water pump that has a few more bolts for timing cover, but this one doesn't have it, so that should do it. Now, camshaft sprocket bolts. Gonna have to push the cams back through here. Unfortunately, the protective tool will not fit with the cover on, so we're just gonna have to wing it carefully with some oil. Longer bolt goes on the left side, rear side. Seal looks okay, even though I didn't use the tool. All right, got the sprockets on. They're loosely bolted because you're not supposed to stretch them and stretch the bolts until after you got the time belt on. Everything's torqued up there. Now, I'm gonna put the rear cover on with the new gasket. Got this cam thrust plate on, bracket. Hopefully it's about where it should be. All right, next step, water pump. And got a few more bolts to put in. All right, now I'm trying to get timing lined up. Made white marks in the time belt. I gotta line up the notches, and then this guy is right at top dead center, so let's see what happens. All right, put the timing covers back on. Torqued all these fasteners down. Gonna put this idler pulley back on. I changed the gasket for this water neck and that oil cooler hose.